What is going on? You already know it's Orlando, and today, I know everybody makes these top 5, top 3, top best builds videos all the time, right? Well, I decided to do something a little different, and that is do a top 10 worst builds in 2K20. So these builds are horrible. I recommend you do not make them unless you want something, that's rare, because most of these builds are really rare because no one makes them because they really suck. And make sure you guys take 1 second out of your day, drop a like on the video, and the question of the day today is, where are you from, man? I'm from Chicago. I want to know where you guys are from. Let me know in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's just get right into the video. The first build on the list is the shooter. You don't see this build too often, and this is how you make this build, and we'll go over why it really sucks. You're gonna want to make them into a small forward, and then for the first pie chart, you're gonna want to pick the green and red pie chart, and then you can pick the first pie chart on the second option, and then the stats right here. You're gonna want it to read 1 finishing, 17 shooting, 1 playmaking, and 13 defensive rebounding badges. You're gonna want to make him 6'9" and max weight, that's 260 pounds. And then for the wingspan, you're gonna want to do 84.9 for the wingspan, and boom, look at the stats right here, man. This is the build. You don't get much finishing. Your shooting's actually pretty decent. You get a 79 mid-range, 75 three-pointer. You can't dribble. Obviously you can't dribble on this build, and the defense is just not great. This build is on the list because it's terrible. Its name is shooter, and your shooting stats are all in the 70s. So why would you name a build shooter if they can't really shoot like that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can shoot decently in the 70s. If you can't shoot like Curry, man, your build name should not be shooter. That's just, I don't know, man. I don't know what 2K was thinking with that one. But yeah, guys, after you make the build, you get a choice of 4 takeovers, and boom, it will have told you have built shooter. And like I said, guys, this build is on the list because this build cannot shoot. That's why it says similar to Sean Marion. He can shoot a little bit, but not like that. He was not considered a shooter, and that's why this build is on the list. The next build on the list is the interior playmaker. Yeah, so if you want to make this build, you're gonna want to make them into a center, all right? And for the pie chart, you're gonna want to go with the red and orange pie chart, playmaking and defensive pie chart. And then you're gonna want your stats to read this: 1 finishing, 5 shooting, 16 playmaking, and 13 defensive rebounding badges. All right, you're gonna want to make this build 7 foot tall, 250 pounds, and an 89.1 wingspan. And we're gonna look over why this build sucks. It's an interior playmaker. He's a center, and he has no inside finishing. All his finishing's in the 60s. He can't shoot at all. I mean, his three-pointer is a 59. His mid-range is a 63, and then you can't dribble on this build at all with the 52 ball handle. And then the defensive stats are not all that great. I mean, you have a 73 interior, but you're going to be defending other big men. They're just going to abuse you in the paint. And your rebounding stats, they're decent, but they're not like the best. This build is just not a dominant build. I would never make it, and maybe that's why we never see this build at the park. But once you finish the build, you get a choice of 1 of 4 takeovers. Choose one, and it will have told you have built the interior playmaker. This build you never see at the park. It's non-existent, and it's for a reason, and that's why it's on the list. The next build on the list is the small ball 4. Surprisingly, I have seen a few of these at the park, but let's just see how the stats add up on this build. To make them, you're gonna want to make them into a small forward and pick the mostly green pie chart for the first one, the shooting pie chart. And then for the stats, you're gonna want it to read this: 4 finishing, 22 shooting, 6 playmaking, and 4 defensive rebounding badges. You're gonna want to make them 6'7", 218 pounds, and for his wingspan, it's gonna be 83.8. All right, so for the small ball 4, it's not even a forward, it's a small forward. He's gonna be short, undersized, and his shooting is not all that great. You get a 73 mid-range, 73 three-pointer. Your inside finishing is not good at all. You can't ball handle like that, and your defense is cruised. It's horrible. So this build, the stats are terrible. That's why you really don't see them, even though I have seen like 5 of them. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they built it a little bit differently. but the one I built completely sucks. And yeah, you get a choice of 1 or 2 takeovers. Once you pick one, it will have told you you have built the small ball 4. This build is terrible. It's a small 4, not a 4. It's undersized. It can't shoot like that. It can't really do anything like that, and that's why it's on the list. The next build on the list is the Ball Hawk. To make this build, you're going to want to make him into a point guard, all right? And you're going to want to pick the red pie chart, the mostly defensive pie chart. And for the badges on this build, you're going to want it to read at 12 finishing, 1 shooting, 11 playmaking, and 26 defensive and rebounding badges. For the height on this build, you're going to want to make him a 6'3" with a weight of 189 pounds and a wingspan of 78.6. A lot of people have made this build, well, a lot of YouTubers, and they enjoy making this build because it has a cool name, I guess. It's not really good at all. Look at the stats. I mean, it has some finishing. It can do a driving dunk and a layup. It can't really shoot, but it does have a 67 mid-range, so it can shoot it a little bit, but not really good at all. It can't really dribble, and the defensive stats aren't really that great besides your lateral quickness and steal. Your steal's a 95. That's why a lot of people make this build. They want a 95 steal, and they just want to troll and steal the ball. But besides that, man, this build, the stats aren't that great. It's not really that good of a build. It just has a really cool name. I mean, if you make this build and you take it to the park, you get people messaging you like, whoa, how'd you make the Ball Hawk? Is that a good build, or, you know, what's up? Anyways, guys, yeah, you get a choice of 1 takeover out of the 3. Choose one, and it will have told you you have build the Ball Hawk. This build is not that good. It has a cool name, but that's about it. And that's why it's on the list. The next build on the list is actually 2 builds. They're both very similar, so I just decided to put them both in one spot, and that is the Rugged Wing and the Rugged Guard. I know a lot of you guys have already seen the Rugged Wing in my past videos or in other people's videos, and you guys already know that build is terrible. We'll just go through the stats on this build real quickly. He's a small forward, you know, the red pie chart, all defensive pie chart. And then y'all can see a total, this build gets a total of like 20 some badges, and you're going to want to make him 6'8", 84.8 wingspan, and the stats are terrible. Like, the defensive stats are all in the 70s. He can't dribble, he can't shoot, and his inside game is all in the 60s. So this build is just not your ideal build. And then for the other build, the Rugged Guard, the one that people don't really know of, is also just as bad. For this build, you're going to want to make him into a shooting guard, and you're going to want to pick the green and red pie chart, all right? And once you do that, you can see the stats on the Rugged Guard are terrible. Look at the build, man. You get all 60 finishing, all horrible shooting. You can't dribble. And the defense, you actually get a semi better blocking rating than the Rugged Wing, but everything else besides the blocking and the defensive rebound, this build can't do anything. And that's why these builds are on this spot. But yeah, once you pick, you know, the takeovers and all of that, you get either the Rugged Guard or the Rugged Wing, and these builds are terrible. I would never recommend making them unless you just want to have a rare build name. But yeah, that's why they're on the list. Coming in at number 5 is the Point Center. The Point Center, you're going to want to make them into a center and pick the mostly orange pie chart. That's the playmaking pie chart. And after that, you're going to want your badges to read this: 1 finishing, 5 shooting, 16 playmaking, and 13 defensive rebounding badges. You're going to want to make this build 6'9", 190 pounds with an 81 wingspan, and the stats are going to read this. Remember, guys, this is a center, and he's 6'9", and he has the smallest wingspan, and he can't do anything in the paint. He can barely shoot. He can't shoot consistently, all right? We'll just say that. His passing and ball handling is good for a center, but that is not going to do it for this build. And the defense is horrible, all in the 60s. His, rebounding is okay, but you're going to be short with a small wingspan. So the defensive rebound and offensive rebound stats don't even matter. All right, so this build's just junk, complete garbage. Anyways, you get a choice of one of 4 takeovers. Pick one. and it will told you have build the point center. This build is terrible. It's short arms, and yeah, it can't do anything, and that's why it's on the list. The next build on the list is the deep range shot creator. To make this build, you're going to want to make him into a point guard and pick the mostly green chart, the shooting pie chart. Then after that, you're going to want the badges to read 1 finishing, 28 shooting, 7 playmaking, and 10 defense, the rebounding badges. For this build, you're going to want to make him 6'2". He's going to be super short and weighs 165 pounds. And the wingspan of 74 inches. All right, man, look at the stats on this build. Boom, he can't finish. He can shoot really good. He can't really dribble. He has an 82 ball handle. You'll be able to get your dribble moves after you hit like a 98 overall. And the defense is going to be terrible because you're 6'2" and your wingspan's the shortest it can be. And this build's just terrible because you're so small. You can't really play defense. You can't really dribble until you're 98 overall, and you can't finish in the paint. There's so many builds that are way better than this build. All right, I mean, you can pick whatever takeover you want and it will tell you have built the deep range shot creator. But like I said, man, there's so many way better builds to make than this one. There's better options, more size. This build just has no size and it can't really do anything but shoot. But yeah, that's why this build is on the list. Coming in at number 3, it's the shot blocking guard. This build is super rare. You never really ever see it at the park. And this is how you build it, man. You got to make them into a point guard. And after that, you're going to want to pick the mostly red pie chart. And then you're going to want your badges to read this: 3 finishing, 3 shooting, 3 playmaking, and 17 defensive rebounding badges. You're going to want to make this build 6'6" with 198 pounds and a minimum wingspan of 78 inches. The stats, man, the finishing's terrible. It's all in the 60s. The shooting, you can shoot a little mid-range. It's not going to be consistent, but you can't shoot a 3-pointer at all. You can't dribble, and the defense is all in the 70s besides the blocking and the defensive rebounding, which is in the 80s. But yeah, the stats are terrible for this build. You have better options on making a better defensive build than this one. This one you're only going to be making if you want that rare name. You get a choice of 1 of 3 takeovers. Pick one and boom, it will have told you have built the shot blocking guard. It says it's similar to Russell Westbrook, but it is definitely not. And this build is nothing like him. It's complete trash. There's other better defensive builds you can make for a guard, and that's why this build is on the list. Coming in at number 2, the slashing 5. The slashing 5, man, you don't see it, it's trash. This is how you make it, all right, man. You make them into a center, and you're gonna want to pick the mostly orange pie chart. All right. And then you're gonna want your badges to read this: 1 finishing, 8 shooting, 12 playmaking, and 12 defensive rebounding badges. You're gonna want to make this guy 7 foot tall, 275 pounds, with a wingspan of an 86.9. And look at the stats, guys. Remember, it's a slashing 5. And this build can barely shoot. It has a 77 mid-range, a 73 pointer, and then it's a slashing 5, and it has a driving dunk of a 34 and a standing dunk of a 26. This build can't even dunk, and it's called a slashing 5. The passing and all of that is decent, and the defense is not good at all. But yeah, guys, you get a choice of 1 of 4 takeovers, and boom, it will have told you you have built the slashing 5. This build is a complete lie because this build, you can't really shoot like that, and you can't even dunk. Why is it called the slashing 5? It makes no sense, and that's why it's on the list. The number 1 build on the list, you guys already know this build. Everyone knows this build. This build's the worst build in the game, and that is the prospect. All right, the prospect. You're gonna want to make him into a small forward and pick the red and green pie chart. All right, then you're gonna want your badges to read 4 finishing, 4 shooting, 5 playmaking, 5 defensive rebounding badges. And yeah, you're gonna want to make them 6'8", 222 pounds with a wingspan of 88.7. And boom, as y'all can see, his stats, they're all in the 60s. Everything, his finishing, his shooting, his playmaking, and his defensive rebounding. All right, all his stats are in the 60s. This build is not good at anything. It's not even mediocre at anything. It's just terrible at everything. You get a choice of a takeover, pick one, and boom, it will have told you you have built a prospect. This build is the worst build in the game. It can't do anything, and that's why it's on the list. Well, that does it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little bit different. It's builds you probably shouldn't make unless you want a rare name. But yeah, guys, if you guys want a part 2, because there is so many other horrible builds in the game, let me know in the comments down below. Drop a like in the video. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you guys. I'm Dio, and I'm out.
Racks coming, I put my low racks on it. I ain't skip past losses, I had to get back off it. See the fit lab on it until they whip my coffin. Money clip, I tossed it, I heard it's big bags on big bags on big bags coming, coming in. Yeah, flex, I just wanna win. Yeah, LABB.